Marina Sevastidou is an experienced senior HR business partner within the gaming industry. In her current position as Senior HR BP for Global Corporate Functions at Wargaming, she explores topics such as people and culture, talent and leadership development, performance management, employee engagement, workforce and succession planning, compensation management. She works in close partnership with business stakeholders to understand people's needs, act as their sounding board, and add value by providing smart solutions based on meaningful data. Being a big supporter of DEI initiatives and an ambassador for Women in Games and Women in Tech, Marina is very active in helping women to grow and strengthen their presence in the tech and gaming industry. Marina, welcome to the Future Makers podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I want to start with a very, very basic question, which is, how would you define HR?
Interesting question. I think HR is there to connect people and business, right? To, in a way, create a win-win scenario for both, right? Help the business to flourish and be successful, but also help the people who are in the business to be able to, grow, thrive in their work and live, a meaningful life through what they're doing. So it's kind of a challenge, I would say, having that sort of alignment in a way, because in a lot of times, business priorities may not be totally, in line with what people want. So you have to be in HR needs to be in a position to kind of bring that balance in a way.
It's really interesting. Like you're saying that the people there, I like that what you use, the meaningful life. I think people don't often use like these kind of phrases when it comes to work. There's this mindset of like, you come to work, you work for the purpose of the company. It's not really what you want. It's what the company wants. But you're saying that it's a bit of both.
Right.
There needs to be this connection. Can you comment on that?
Yeah. Definitely you work for the company's, mission and strategic direction, right? But you need to kind of identify yourself in that, right? So, and this, of course, is not only dependent on you as a person, right? It depends on the leadership and what kind of, interaction there is with the leadership, how the leadership operates, what kind of communication the leadership, provides to the people, right? And it's a vice versa thing. So I think it's important for every professional in order to feel that they belong actually, where they are, to actually identify themselves in that business, whether this is about, a solid example of that, I would say, is that being able to live out the values that the business has in their everyday, interactions, right? And being able to kind of, not only show that in their behaviors, their actions, the way that they even their body language, right, and even how they actually operate in the business on a daily basis. And it's of course it's about connecting with the values, but it's also about the feeling that you are contributing to something bigger than yourself, right? So the company has a specific, targets that they want to reach. How am I going to contribute to that through the work that I do? And a lot of times that may not be, clearly evident or, measurable in a way. But I think it's important to make that correlation and connection, actually, because this is what it's going to help, each employee to feel, that they are actually contributing, right, to that purpose, and they are in essence driven by this purpose, right? So it creates meaning in their daily work life, right? It gives an answer to why I'm doing this, what I'm doing, right?
As a professional, how can you identify these like qualities in somebody? What elements do you look for when at, you know, the company culture or the individuals within the company culture, that they are connecting to the mission, they are being driven to perform and to align, or on the opposite end are maybe falling away or kind of looking elsewhere?
I think you are able to realize all of these things through smaller, you know, things that may be happening on a day-to-day basis, right? It doesn't have to be something big that somebody does. So it's how they communicate with their team, right? How they interact with each other, what kind of ideas they bring forward, if they feel, encouraged to do so, right? And they feel comfortable to bring a different perspective, right, to the table, even though it may not be, very familiar to others, right? So it's about all of those things, and it's about essentially not feeling that, they are experts in certain fields, right? But that they are also able to share their knowledge with others and also learn from others. So it's about leaving that egoistic kind of, characteristic behind, and, broadening your perspective as well, right? Yeah. So it's little things, I would say, that you notice on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of times those things may not be exactly measurable, right? Yeah. But it's a whole, it's something that paints the picture, for each of us, I would say. I
guess you have to develop this instinct as a professional to be able to point out things that are less said or less, as you said, measurable. But you have this instinct to be able to be like, okay, I'm going to keep my eye on this and see if there's any other things that, will tick the box as well. Mm-hmm. How does culture and different cultures play a role in that? You work in Wargaming, which is a very multicultural environment. And of course, people are coming from like a history or a cultural experience that may bring in different personalities, different characteristics, different approaches. How does that play a role in being able to notice these changes and how people engage with the company culture and company's mission? And how have you adapted your own kind of approach based on what you've learned by working with different people from different cultures?
Yeah. I think working with in a multicultural environment is kind of a two-faceted, thing, right? There's the one thing that, it has a lot of challenges on the one hand, because having people from different cultures work together means that the different backgrounds come together, different opinions, which a lot of them, they may be differing, one from the other, or they may be they may be controversial, right? But I think what's a very foundational element, I would say, when it comes to working with different cultures, it's communication, right? So establishing a clear communication from the beginning, it's important, and getting everyone aligned to that, right? So for them to be able to share what's on their mind, not feel that they are going to be judged in a way, or looked with the wrong eye in a way around that. So establishing that communication, it's important, because this will essentially help in other things, right, as well, to strengthen, trust in the team, right, strengthen the relationships, right, that exist, and essentially that also helps in innovation, new ideas to flourish, new ideas even to go badly, because that happens, right?
Yeah.
But it's important to still try, and even though you might fail, let's say, you're going to learn from that, right, and continue and don't give up. I think that a lot of these things are influencing how we work in multicultural environments.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Working in the gaming sector, what have you seen in the different company cultures with the companies maybe you've interacted with? How different do you think the gaming sector is to other sectors, and maybe the company cultures between different companies within the gaming sector? What do you think? What have you seen as their biggest challenges, or even their biggest successes?
Mm-hmm. I think the gaming industry in itself, it's a very fast-paced and agile industry. It crosses the intersection of, entertainment. It's really focusing on entertainment, right? And trying to satisfy, the players' expectations, which can be really challenging and very, volatile, I would say, over time. So I think all of these elements, they are kind of embedded in the culture in a way, because you're constantly trying to optimize, analyze, dig into things, not just look at things from the surface, right? And I think this is something that it's very very common in the industry, of course, with the other fact being, the creativity, right, that is there. Whether that is creating, code or visuals, arts, animation, game design, different elements that fall into actually making a successful game. And I think luck is also a thing that plays its part in getting something successful. But I would say that one thing that is very common, what I've noticed, right, in a lot of the companies working in the gaming industry, it's this kind of agility and freedom to express themselves, right? Whether that is through creative ways or technical ways or other ways, right? So it's like a pot of different, skills that come together to create something really good. Yeah.
I'm guessing that because there's so much creativity involved, there is always this risk of having creative burnout or just work burnout, just in general, especially in such fast-paced environments. What practical, protocols have you kind of developed over the years to be able to spot individuals that might be falling into burnout, and then being able to kind of pull them out of that?
Yeah. We do focus a lot on generally well-being and being mindful of that. And continuously, at least from our part as HR, educating our managers on that, right? From the beginning that they become managers, right? How important it is to have that sort of balance. even though we understand this is not a studied thing and it may go, up and down a lot of times. So what we do, and I think this is coming not only from the different initiatives that we have internally, whether this is our internal leadership program and other types of activities that are organized by each HRBP, is to kind of bring our managers in that mindset, right? That it's a very crucial thing to have. You need to be aware of this could be the signs, whether the person is, starting to log off, from the rest of the team, or you are noticing that you are not able to reach them, let's say at certain phases within the day, because we also work remotely. Right, and that has its challenges as well. Or whether that is, the person losing interest in what they do, right? They're not delivering at the expected level, let's say, that they were delivering. So there may be a lot of things that are impacting to that. Maybe the person is going through something, personal, and you have no idea what's happening there. And they're coming to work and they're showing, a happy face, and you don't know what the other person is going through. So I think it's important for each manager, right, to establish that sort of human relationship, I would say, with each of the team members, and for them to feel that they are supported, right, and not only as professionals but as people as well.
There's been a lot of debate about remote working,
right.
Whether it's healthy for company culture, whether it's the best option, or whether it just creates more distance between employees and colleagues. As a HR, as somebody who leads the HR. What has your experience been with watching the company culture change from, in office to remote? And what have been your biggest challenges, working in that environment?
I think for our company, it's been pretty, I wouldn't say it hasn't been that difficult to shift to that kind of mindset, because we've always had this way of working in our lives, let's say, because we work through different countries, right? Our teams are distributed in different locations. So remote work is kind of, in essence, there in a way. Indeed, when the pandemic hit, that became even further, right? It became even stronger. So what we did, and what I've noticed over time, is it's important to have a balance, I would say. There are people, and try not to put too many restrictions on people, because that will cause them to feel that they are kind of, restrained in a way. But of course, do that in a way that allows you to, I wouldn't say keep control. It's not the best word, but allows you to make sure that you know what's going on in the team. You know how the team is doing. They're productive or not. If they're facing challenges in a way. So I wouldn't say remote work is the best thing to have. I wouldn't say that it's the worst thing to have, but I would say that if you have the flexibility to combine both, so to do a kind of a hybrid mode, and that is physically, possible in a way. If you have that possibility to do that, once in a quarter or once in a month, that's a good thing, because it allows people to come together, and the connection when people are in the same room, it's much different, right, than being screen to screen.
Yeah, it's very true. How can you define that connection of being in the same room? What have you seen? Like, what kind of connections have you seen come out of that when people have come together?
I think when people are together, definitely human emotions are more visible. In a way, the little kind of, cues that are there, whether that is the, expression on my face, or how I'm, sitting, how I'm standing, how I'm leaning my body, if I'm doing this, or if I'm doing this, or if I'm, so it's the little things that show you how the person is feeling, and it allows you also what we say when you read the room, right? You cannot read the screen in a way. So you read the room and you understand what's the vibe, right? You understand how other person is feeling. So they may not be talking at all. So are they doing that because they feel that they have something on their mind, but they're not quite sure how to express it in the best way, or they feel that they're going to be, looked upon in a certain way if they say that. So I think it's all the little things that, being physically together in the same room, it's quite different versus being screen to screen.
I want to take a moment, pause, and just talk about you a little bit. How did you come into the people space? What attracted you to a career within HR?
I've always been very a people person generally. I would say even when I was growing up, as a child and then as a student, I've always liked being around people and being able to help people where I could. So when I got to know, what HR is about during my studies, when I was doing an MBA course, and some HR courses were part of the curriculum, I was actually, drawn to that and thought that, does actually, makes sense. It feels right, the right thing. So after completing my studies, I started, to look into finding a position in that field, essentially. And I think what actually drew me to that, it's what I said before, how crucial I would say the role of HR is in achieving not only company success, but also people to be successful. So it's kind of that intersection that's really fascinating and challenging at the same time.
Of course. Yeah. What was it like? When you got the job with Wargaming and you step into this huge, international company where you're expected to not just, interact with fellow colleagues, but also, advise people in leadership positions. And you are coming in, as, I'm guessing newly qualified, and also as a woman, where we know that confidence gap is a big thing in woman professionalism. What was your experience like, and how did you kind of overcome some of your own personal challenges? If you'd like to share.
I think what was pretty challenging for me when I joined Wargaming, it's the industry itself, because I was very new to the industry. I wasn't really a gamer, so I knew some things, but very basic things, right? So what I needed to do, at least in the beginning, is to understand how the industry works, because I was also part of the company was under a different structure at the moment. So I was part of the global development team. So the team that was actually making the games. So and I needed and I needed to do hiring for specific positions, whether that was game designers, producers, and so on. So I needed to understand their language, right? So I really invested a lot of time, I would say, on my own to really go and study online and see, what it means to be a producer, what it means to be a game designer, how these people contribute into making a game, what are the differences, what are the different kind of, tech skills that they may have. Of course, my confidence was very low in the beginning in joining the industry because, as I said, I was an outsider, right? But I think what helped me to increase my confidence over time was the trust that I was shown into each little thing, that I had to do, and trying to put myself, my best self into that and giving the result in the best possible way. With mistakes happening, maybe some miscommunication at some times, but I always said to myself, you need to push through, right? It's kind of, pushing myself to do more in a way, to continue, to not give up. So, and I think every woman is going to face this kind of challenges, in their career, whether they're in the tech industry or in other industries as well, right? But I think what's important is also to believe in yourself. And this may not be, as strong when you begin your career, but if you have faith in your abilities, this will increase, over time. And as it increases over time, you will notice how other people perceive and interact with you as well, right? You will notice the differences in their communication and in how they approach you, right? If they come to you and they trust you and they come to you, early with what's on their mind, so you're in position to, be proactive and share your ideas, right? So, yeah. It's really been, for me, it's really been quite a challenge, I would say, boosting my confidence over time and, leaving this kind of imposter syndrome behind. And I would say it continues to be a work in progress. But I think as every woman, gets more experience, right? In their career, digs into things, doesn't give up, all of those things, they come together to boost the confidence, definitely.
Yeah.
Right.
You're involved in a lot of women communities, so women in tech, women in gaming. How have you developed your own approach to supporting women in the organization, especially women working in tech who may also experience this lack of confidence because it's a very male-dominated field? What have you learned to do, or how have you learned to support them in order to boost their confidence, but also to maybe even bring more women in, or, make a more inclusive environment in the company culture?
I think generally my involvement in these initiatives was totally, personal and voluntary, because I've always thought that, having more women on board, it's a really good thing that will make the industry even better than it is. So first of all, I want to say that. So, and also clarify that, whatever initiative I may have done different types of things. I wouldn't say not necessarily everything tied to the company, but tied to my own, my own choice. I think it's about either sharing my story or sharing experiences that have helped to shape, who I am and how I built my confidence over time, and getting, more women to actually, reflect on that themselves. So I think in every community, because it is a community, right? Whether this is women in tech or women in games, it's important to have that sort of connection with each other, a sense of like togetherness, a sense of support that connects all of the women who are organized in this community, and also definitely sharing the knowledge, sharing the expertise, sharing the experiences. I would say it's important. I've tried to do that, even though, I may not have been totally active all of the time, but I try, in the limited amount of time that I have, whether this is through networking or connecting with people online or participating in some of the events that they do, online events or face-to-face, depends on what's there. But
there's a lot of talk now in like recruitment, in that, especially in like more tech-focused sectors or even the gaming sectors, that it's been a little bit hard to get the right talent. And I'm not talking that there isn't enough talent, but it's the right talent for that company. What has your experience been like, and what challenges do you see now, especially with the new technologies coming up, that, where recruitment is going, why it has been so hard to get the right talent into the company?
Yeah. The talent war is definitely there, I would say, the past couple of years, especially when it comes to the technology industry as a whole. I would say not only gaming, definitely. But what's really influencing that, it's, a lot of external factors as well, right? Whether it is geopolitical conditions that are going on, right? The emerging technologies that are happening, AI, and how that is actually affecting all sectors and all industries, not just the tech industry. So all of these things have contributed into making it difficult to find the right talent, maybe in the right place that you're looking for. Because definitely, I would say you need to do a lot of compromise if you want to, actually get the best possible talent for what you have available, right? And I would say now it's, in the past it was more the candidates, fitting into the company's expectations, but now it's a lot more vice versa thing, right? So it's about how you fit to what I need and how I fit to what you need. So it's both ways, right? And all of these things, have definitely made it difficult for people to find the right talent, as well as the, all of the emerging technologies that are going on, and especially when it comes to gaming, right? The different types of engines that are being introduced, different coding languages, different art stacks and everything. So all of those things, it's a really hard thing actually for each professional to be able to follow all of that, right? And stay on top of everything.
Whilst having a full-time job and probably a family and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Keeping themselves, on top of the industry. Now that we do have so many changes, in the sector, and I'm guessing there's been a lot of changes in HR, in the HR sector in general, how have you kind of adapted to the changes and been able to keep yourself like on top of things?
Yeah. Definitely for me, staying on top of what's going on, it's really important, right? And looking at it not only from the perspective of being in wargaming, but looking at it on a bigger scale, right? So understanding what's going on in the industry as a whole, what are the different priorities, the different challenges, because the industry itself has gone through a very difficult time the past couple of years after COVID, and still continues to have a very difficult time. With development costs rising up, players' expectations changing, investments in games are not that big anymore. But we've seen that a lot of governments have also tried to be more supportive to the games industry. There was recently a big fund announced in the UK, from what I know, regarding a sufficient amount of money to be given to the game industry locally in order to be able to ship out new games. So I think all of those things are happening, and in order for someone to be able, to be in line actually with what's going on, curiosity, it's really important, I would say, and not just reading online and reading the news and knowing what's going on, but also connecting with people, right? Whether this is through LinkedIn or other types of platforms, right? Participating in events, going at events, sharing ideas, networking. I think all of those things contribute into helping you, and it has helped me actually to form the bigger picture, right? So look at things more holistically. Yeah.
There's also a lot of talk about technology replacing HR. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think technology can ever replace HR, or is there something else that we're missing in this debate?
I would twist it and say technology to enable HR, to optimize HR in some areas, right? That it can have a lot of good impact. But definitely the human element, I would say it's very important to keep. Right, because obviously, AI can help in a lot of things that may be, more operational, to automate or to provide, on the spot, feedback on what to do, whether that is policies, processes, structures, all of those things. But essentially, it's important to have the human judgment intact, I would say, right? Because this is what is gonna, provide better insights, right? Because AI doesn't know what's going on in your company, right? Nor can they judge, or have an opinion of how to do something better, whether this is a restructure or a change in the management or bringing new talent or replacing talent or whatever. They cannot give you that sort of they can give you the advice, right? But it doesn't mean you have to follow it fully, right? So you need to place your own judgment and actually think to what AI is proposing, right? Yeah.
You mentioned in your bio that data is very important in how you make your decisions. How important is data in your everyday when it comes to being able to manage the people in the company culture, and where do you think the limitation of data lies?
I think data, essentially for me, provides a foundation that I can work on, right? And get some insights from that and decide what should be my focus areas, right? So in our company, we have different types of HR analytics that we look at and are available to us on a daily basis, whether this is headcount, employee cost, turnover, distribution of the workforce management versus employees, men versus women. So a lot of those things, they give us a good foundation on what we can focus on. Mm-hmm. Of course, always depending on what are the specifics of each of the team that each of us support, right? So I would say that how I'm using data in my current role, it's more to analyze it and come to some, let's say, insights through that, but also look at those insights and make some proposed actions, right? Whether those actions will be followed through, of course, it depends on, what the business wants to do, what are the priorities, what is feasible and what is not. But I think it's important, definitely in our work, to be data literate. Yeah. And especially the past years, HR is becoming even more data literate and focused on data. Yeah. I think what's also becoming even more evident when it comes to leadership in the past couple of years, it's that we are moving towards a more possibly, supportive / servant type of leadership, rather than it was noticed and established in the past, where it was very much, directive and hierarchical. So now that's shifting into a different type of model, and a lot of the things that are important for leaders to have, it's not really so much on their, subject matter expertise or, them being the best experts in their field, but it's also about the human elements, right, that they have and how they express those in their everyday communication, how they lead through those, right?
How important do you think it is to be a role model in leadership? Whether it is leaders in the teams that you manage, or even you as somebody who also has a leadership position. What do you think the value in being a role model within the company is for other colleagues? Yeah.
I think being a role model definitely is a very good thing to have, because people relate to you. And essentially, in a way, they start to follow what they're doing, right? So if a leader, just to give an example, if a leader, let's say, because we talked about work-life balance before, right? So my kid got sick and I need to go out, take care of my child. If a leader does that, definitely the people in the team will be, feeling even more comfortable to follow that way, right? So whether also this is that about, bringing the team together to help, on some things that are priorities, making them aware of what's going on, on the higher level, as I said, getting them to align to the purpose, right? And fit and relate to that. So I think it really helps having role models, definitely, in leadership, and not just in leadership, but also in other positions, as you mentioned, in HR as well, right? Because our role is to actually, influence our leaders to lead even better, so we need to, in a way, portray, that sort of momentum, let's say, ourselves, definitely.
If you were going to advise somebody who is now starting a company, building their company in terms of people, if you were going to advise them on how to create an environment that you think will help people thrive in that company, what would be your advice and practical suggestions for that leader? What should they be focusing on, and how should they be approaching to building that company culture?
Yeah. As I said, I think what's really important when it comes to culture is having a foundational set of values that people can relate to, and not just having that for the sake of having them, like abstract words and they don't mean anything, but connect them actually to the mission of the company, right? So what we're trying to achieve and how those words actually, create meaning into what we're trying to do. So, of course, creating the space and the opportunity for people to know about those things, right? To relate to those things. So essentially, it's having that level of communication, so clear, timely, two-way communication. Definitely, it's important to have. Of course, it's also important to, establish some, foundational guidelines that people can follow, whether this is, the processes you have in place, how you structure things, right, from an HR perspective, who's responsible for what, who you can ask what things, so people know, where to address anything that they have, right? But of course, this is important to have not only smaller companies, but also in bigger environments, right? Where it's a lot more people. But yeah, I think the first and most important thing, definitely, it's the values and the communication, to have this sort of alignment.
Beautiful. And I have my last question to you is, what kind of future of work are you hoping to build?
Interesting question.
It's very philosophical.
Difficult one. Yeah, philosophical, rhetorical, I would say. Future of work. Definitely the future of work needs to stay human-centric, I would say. Yeah, definitely. Of course, being enabled and supported by technology, but retaining that core, human element in it. I think using all of those tools and things that we said before into your work, continuously, improving on that. But I think some of the areas that we've seen in HR that are very important to people, right? Well-being, work-life balance, growth, and development. So all of those big chunks of things, right? I think these are things that are really important for people, and these can be, they are already actually, things that HR is focusing on in a lot of companies.
Beautiful. Yeah. Marina, it's been such a pleasure. I feel like I've just been absorbing all your knowledge from years and listening to you. I just know I'm in the right hands when it comes to getting advice on all things HR. So thank you so much for coming. I'm very, very grateful. And I think our audience will be just, very grateful to get your insight on some of the biggest issues going on in HR right now, especially in the gaming industry. Again, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity, and it was very nice to meet you.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you.